You're fired. These are the worst two words in the English language. Probably any language, but definitely the worst two words. Today we're going to talk a little bit briefly about labor law. We're going to go into a little bit of detail, not too much detail, but these are some of our objectives. We're going to talk about competing values of employees and employers, general labor law, sources of labor law dispute resolution options, essence of employment. Now, the purposes of labor law is obviously to prevent discrimination. One of the reasons anyway. Obviously, race, sex, and some of those other issues that come up, ageism and so forth. To regulate fair wages, benefits, and safety and liability. We want to ensure that that contractor that's working several stories above us has a safe, very, very safe working environment. So, without further ado, when it comes to employers and employees, there are competing values. On the one hand, we have employees who want the maximum amount of compensation for the least amount of work. On the other hand, we have the employer who wants the maximum amount of production for the least amount of expenditure, especially when it comes to employees. So there's sort of this natural dichotomy, this sort of innate contention that's built in, if you will. Hence we have labor laws. And I'm not going to go into great detail here. We have Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, Family Medical Leave Act, etc. And in one form or fashion, we have interacted with these laws our entire adult life, or our entire working life, if you will. Now, what are the sources of some of these laws? Well, most of them stem from federal statutory laws and acts, state laws as well. We have the United States Constitution and state constitutions. We have case law, which is basically judge-made law. We have common law, which is essentially law that's from Mother England, and since we're part of the Commonwealth, we utilize that law. Administrative law, which is sort of a creature of administrative agencies, such as those alphabet agencies, the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the NLRB, which stands for the National Labor Relations Board, which is basically about unions. And then, of course, we have executive orders, which stem from the president on down to the governor of any given state. Now, basically, these are essentially some of the disputes, or actually methods of resolving disputes within court. Obviously, we know what lawsuits are. They're expensive, and they can be pretty much a sort of a public nightmare when it comes to employers. And then we have arbitration. Arbitration essentially is just the same process with an arbitrator there. It's binding, obviously, but it doesn't have the same type of public spectacle, a little bit more anonymity for the employer, and it's a little bit cheaper. And then we have mediation, which is sort of arbitration without teeth. It's arbitration without any type of binding type of judgments, if you will. It's to preserve relationships typically. Now, we'll talk about essentially the nature of the relationship. Now, what exactly is an employee? Well, an employee is defined in two spheres. One sphere is the traditional employee, then we have the independent contractor. Now, what's an independent contractor? Let's say you want somebody whacked. Well, you're not going to train them, are you? You're definitely not going to file a tax return or do anything administratively, but you just want it one and done. On the other hand, we have traditional employees, where it's sort of like a marriage. You know, it's a consistent relationship. They're going to be there at 8, leave at 5, they get 9 holidays, etc. Well, if anything, you know the IRS is always involved in our business. They have 20 characteristics when it comes to that relationship. Fortunately, they've consolidated to 3. There's behavioral control. So I want you to wear this uniform with the funny-looking chicken hat. And I want you to be at work at 8 o'clock. And then we have financial control. You get paid every day, every week, twice a month. Or, you know what, I'll pay you when you knock off my wife and the insurance check clears. Of course, that's an independent contractor. And then third, the relationship between the employer and the employee. And that's if it's based on a continual basis, or again, if it's sort of one and done. And now we have some exemplars here. Well, first of all, a musician is obviously an independent contractor. You know, they pretty much show up when they want to. They have artistic freedom when it comes to the actual songs and the attire they wear, etc. And then the compensation is based on whatever relation, whatever contract they have between the actual promoter or the record company and themselves. Then we have the plumber. Well, hopefully it's a one-and-done type of relationship because they're expensive. 2, we pay them when they're done. And then primarily, as far as behavior is concerned, there's no uniform, although they do have that little short shirt thing and jean, that plumber's coin slot. Moving on. What about NBA players? Well, show of hands. Employees? Don't be afraid to raise your hand.
No.
Depends.
What about independent contractors?
It depends.
How about
Either a union?
Neither.
Well, they're actually employees. Most team sports are governed by independent employee because there's definitely a uniform, obviously, right? Nobody wear that in public, probably. Secondly, they do get paid regularly. They get name checks. And then third of all, they especially the better athletes, they want to have a continual relationship. You want to make certain that certain athletes are there every season after season after season, and you want to get rid of the ones that are, well, you know, less than stellar. They don't put, you know, the rear ends in the seats. So, just to kind of summarize, just go briefly, we talked about labor laws, some of the details as far as some of the laws are concerned, some of the sources of law. Dispute resolution as it related to labor laws, and the actual essence of employment. And so, essentially what we get to today, the point we get